In today's episode, I am honored to have Mark Schaefer back on the podcast. He is one of my favorite marketers, authors. He's got a brand new book out called Audacious. I can't put it down. It is so good. Prepare yourself for a rich conversation about being bold and audacious in your marketing and in your business and the advantages that you have as an independent store. I loved this conversation with Mark. Super inspiring, motivating, like be prepared. You might listen to this one a couple of times. Actually, share it with your retailer friends. They're going to get a lot of value out of this. If you haven't listened to Mark's first episode on the show, we'll link to that. He was actually episode number 3 2 years ago. And so we'll link to that too, because that is still very applicable to today's world. And so I hope you can tune into that as well. Before we dive into this episode, here's a little bit more about my guest. Mark W. Schaefer is a globally recognized author, keynote speaker, futurist, and business consultant who blogs at Grow, one of the top 5 marketing blogs of the world. He teaches graduate marketing classes at Rutgers University and has written 10 best-selling books. Now he has his 11th book out called Audacious: How Humans Win in an AI Marketing World. His many global clients include Pfizer, Cisco, Dell, Adidas, and the U.S. Air Force. He has been a keynote speaker at prestigious events all over the world, including South by Southwest, Marketing Summit Tokyo, and the Institute for International and European Affairs, as well as one of our keynote speakers at Evolve Year 1. Mark has appeared as a guest on media channels such as CNN, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, and CBS News. Mark is such a solid human, so smart, so inspiring. So prepare yourself for an epic episode and let's dive in. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Crystal Vilkaitis, the Wolf of Main Street, and this is Rooted in Retail. Mark, welcome back to the Rooted in Retail podcast. I am thrilled you're here.
I am thrilled to be here.
I am so happy to see you. I am loving the new book, Audacious.
Thank you.
It's seriously, I have a problem where I start books and I don't finish them because they don't really engage me that much. And oh my gosh, I can't stop reading this, Mark. It's so good.
It was surprising because, it is a business book, and historically, a lot of people don't finish business books. But when I first sent this out to the beta readers, who are, the readers who kind of help me look at things before it's published, they described it as a page turner.
Yes.
I thought, well, that's a good word.
Great word, and also super engaging. So first of all, you're just so funny. You were a keynote at my conference Evolve Year 1 and hilarious. We had so much fun.
We did.
But so I'm laughing out loud with this book. I love the QR codes and all the examples to watch the videos you're referencing. I even love just the bolding and like the layout of the book. It's just so good.
Oh, great. Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah. And like I haven't figured out the code word yet or the whole phrase, but people got to get the book. You'll know what I'm talking about. There's a whole secret phrase that you learn
puzzle
throughout
in the book. There's a puzzle on the cover. There's a puzzle inside the book.
It's so fun. Now, Mark, for those of my listeners who maybe don't know you, they haven't caught the episode yet, or maybe new to your world, will you just take a couple minutes and share who you are, what you do?
Well, sure. I think, Crystal, at the heart of everything I do, I'm a teacher. I think that's really the role that I play at this stage of my life, whether I blog or I do my podcast or I give a speech or write a book. I'm looking for what's going on in the world that people are worried about. What are they losing sleep about? And how can I help? So before I ever write a book, I think a lot about, where are people puzzled? Where can I help them? And then I put a lot of effort into trying to create, a book or a blog or a podcast that can help. I'm a keynote speaker. This is my 11th book. I'm also a faculty member at Rutgers University in New Jersey. And I do marketing strategy consulting. So that would be it in a short phrase.
You're doing a lot. Thank you for thinking of us and how you can really help support us and where we get stuck, because this marketing world moves fast and it's hard to navigate. And we can waste a lot of time on things. So thank you for what you do. We have a rich conversation planned here. So I just want to dive right in. When I was reading the book, you give so many different examples of what businesses are doing, which I really love. And one of those examples was with e.l.f., a cosmetic brand, big brand. And in it, they do not have a target market, which I really was like surprised by that because
it blows your mind, doesn't it?
it did. I mean, Mark, I teach it like, who are your perfect customer groups is what I call them, your PCGs, really understanding your target audience and always think of them. And so that's just so like not common to not have that market. So do you think that independent retailers should stop focusing on having a perfect customer and focusing on that avatar?
Not necessarily, but I think there is an important lesson here. And, the CMO of e.l.f., Corey Marchessato, is really a brilliant and inspirational leader. And I think the message she's giving us, there's a sentence in the book, a quote in the book, where she says, "We wake up to a new day every day." And what she's saying is the consumers are changing quickly. They're being influenced by things that are happening in the culture, on social media. And I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough when it comes to marketing is speed. Now, especially I know, I so enjoyed coming to your conference and meeting some of your fans there. And, I know some of the people that you work with, some of the people listening today, they're on TikTok, right? They're on Instagram. They're in places where the culture is being formed in a way where you might have one day to be relevant. So I wouldn't necessarily say abandon, the idea of the perfect customer. But what I would say is listen to the advice in the book where Corey says, lean into signals. And what she's saying is this has to be a living document. The world of music is changing. The world of sports is changing. The world of fashion is changing. So we need to sort of wake up every day and make sure that we're being relevant today in this moment. Lean into the signals of our customers. We can't rely on research that occurred, maybe 2-3 years ago. I think that's the important idea for the book.
I couldn't agree more. And this is where, the word evolve, we do have to evolve. We do have to adapt. It's moving so quickly. So we can have our avatars, our ideas of our customers. However, we need to be adaptable and really be willing to change. I think this is where independence is great for them because they're small. They can change quick.
Oh, 100%. And this is something I want to emphasize is that this book was made for your customers. It is made for small to medium-sized businesses. And we'll talk about this because I know you're going to ask me questions about this, but big retail brands, big companies, they're so wedded to tradition and contracts with advertising agencies that, this idea of being in the moment, being flexible, being able to take risks. I mean, your customers are in the sweet spot for the future of marketing.
They so are, which is so exciting for them for sure. Now, in the book, you wrote something, we're dull because we're afraid of risk. Yeah. And I had to read that so many times because it resonates a lot with me. I don't take a lot of risk. And I know a lot of my listeners, like risk can be scary. It's uncomfortable. We have fear that we'll lose our customers. We get it wrong. We don't sound like ourselves if we do something new and different and audacious. And so what's the first step to pushing past that fear and taking a bold marketing swing?
Let's spend a moment talking about why I think there's some urgency in thinking about being a little bit more bold, maybe being a little more risky now. And it's because of the threats that we're facing with AI. If you are doing work that is competent, you're at risk. Competence is vulnerable. Competence is ignorable. AI is competent. AI is more than competent. And so the theme of this book is how do we use our humanity to stand out in a new way? And that might seem scary, but I also want to emphasize, and I don't know if you've gotten to the end of the book yet, but this is a point I re-emphasize at the end of the book with a couple really beautiful case studies, that being audacious doesn't have to be loud. It's never reckless. It's never offensive. It's not about, breaking the law, but it could be about breaking a norm and breaking bad rules for good reasons. A lot of industries have normalized dull.
Yeah.
Because this is the way we always do it. It's President's Day. It's time to have a sale, right? And you think about one of the things that REI did. It was such a signature move in the history of that company. They created this campaign that it was on Black Friday. And they said, we're closing on Black Friday. And they created this hashtag called Opt Outside. And they said, instead of going to shopping malls on Black Friday, go outside. And they used their employees to create content about the best things to do at that time of year in that area to help people get outside and enjoy the environment, enjoy nature on Black Friday instead of beating the crowds. Now, that is audacious.
Yeah.
That is breaking a norm that, probably needed to be broken, because that was part of the DNA of that company. Is, we're not about crowded shopping malls. We're about, helping you get outside. So, doing something like that might seem very scary because it's new, but it's completely aligned with the brand. And so the book is structured in a way to help you evaluate how are things done today and what are the areas we could disrupt to help push our marketing into a different direction that will help us get attention.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking a little bit differently, being willing to take the bold risk. Black Friday, that's like the big shopping day.
Big day.
But you don't have to lose track of who you are. Go outside is so REI. Like that's a really perfect example of it. So be willing to take some of those bold risks, but don't lose who you are for sure. I'm going to take that advice too, Mark. I need to take some of those bolder moves in some of our marketing as well. You also use the word awe, which I love. The power of awe in marketing. Why do you think that awe is so important, and how can indie retailers create those awe moments in their stores?
I think for your fans and your customers and listeners, Crystal, this might be the biggest opportunity in the book. It really is. And it kind of goes like this. There was research done a few years ago that showed the word most associated with marketing and content and stories that goes viral is awe. Now, I made a note of that and I thought a lot about it, and it kind of makes sense. But where I was stuck is, how do you methodically bring that into marketing? Because awe is like the Rocky Mountains. It's like holding a newborn baby. It's like listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. How do you do that with your blog? So I kind of put it aside. Then I read this book called Awe. It was by this social psychologist, Dacher Keltner, and he said, awe is the last human emotion to be studied. And he said, yes, it's true. Vast, inspiring places like the mountains or holding a baby, of course, that inspires awe. But there's something else he called everyday awe. And this comes from bringing people together in a special way. Something that creates this emotional contagion called collective effervescence. So let's say in your hometown, there's, one of your favorite musical artists is playing. So you go and you listen to the concert, you go by yourself and you have a nice time. It's very pleasant. But then think of the difference when you go with friends. Mm-hmm. You sing, you dance, you laugh, you make it an event, and you just say, this was awesome. It creates this contagion of joy and awe that only comes from bringing people together in a meaningful way that creates this emotional resonance. And as I think about the retailers that you work with, people are coming together to come to, a store, but how can we make this more an event, some personalized experience, or an experience with other people, maybe after hours or something, that can create this opportunity for collective effervescence. I hope the people who are listening pay special attention to this part of the book, because the world needs this. Today, people, and especially young people, they consume their whole world through earbuds by themselves.
Yeah.
They're missing shared experiences. They crave shared experiences. If you can create shared experiences in your store, it's a stunning opportunity most people aren't thinking about. And what I want you to do as you read this chapter, think about, what if you had a marketing plan that was add more awe? What would it look like when people want to come back to our store because they experience this collective effervescence, something they're not getting at home or with their friends like they used to, because they're isolated and alone, especially young people, record levels of depression? What if we were more than a store? It was a gathering space where people felt connected in this way. I think it's a very, very interesting idea.
It's a massive opportunity for our independence. They've got the physical space, to your points, of bringing people in there, part of their community. And I'll even say, I was at the National Retail Federation earlier this year, and bigger brands are there, but so many of them, like Chanel, for example, is really focusing on creating these experiences to increase the dwell time to where you might not even buy anything, but you're sitting in there having a cup of coffee because it looks cool. And I like the brand. I want to belong to the brand, like one of your books. And it's just like, that's such a massive opportunity, but looking through it with the lens of awe, like you said, a marketing play with more awe. It's brilliant.
And Lululemon's doing the same thing with their stores, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when the store hours close, they move stuff around and they create this space to use the space for different community activities.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a gathering space. So think about small to medium-sized retailers. You're already connected to the community. They know your face. You are the face of the brand. So I think it's an extraordinary opportunity.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I love it. Okay, Mark. So most brands overthink things like, what should we be posting and how often should we be posting and what color should our logo be? Like, we just put a lot of effort into kind of overthinking things. And so if you could give every retailer a marketing permission slip to stop caring about one thing immediately, what would it be?
Well, first, I want to say that I respect you and how you do put care into things. I don't necessarily think you overthink things, but I know you put a lot of care into what you do. The one thing that I think is highly overrated, and this is going to sound really weird, is social media engagement. And I've studied this a lot and written about this a lot, and there is no research that can draw a line between social media engagement and loyalty or profitability. Now, there are some exceptions if you have a true community, but just sort of random social media posts, you can engage yourself broke. I'll give you an example. So there have been times in my life where I have created a piece of content that went viral that will attract not just hundreds, but thousands of comments, not just on my blog, but then other people write other content about it. And then there's a whole set of engagement there. And there have been periods of my life where I have spent weeks of time doing nothing but engaging with an audience. Now, if engagement is your number one metric, you would think I'm the most successful person in the world because my engagement is off the tracks. But in reality, I'm engaging myself broke because there's so much engagement going on. I can't focus on the stuff that really brings in the money. I think data point here is that the people who are typically hire me, they're stalking me. They're not necessarily engaging every day. They're quiet and they're reading the blog behind the scenes. And maybe, they've been looking at my content for years and they don't even really know they're there. And then they pop up and the time is right. They said, we'd like to talk to you about something, or, I just bought your book and it really was wonderful. So, I think engagement is sort of an intoxicating metric because it's easy to measure. But when that starts to drive your business, I get concerned.
I was dying to know how you would answer that. And that was a really important answer. I mean, you really can waste so much time.
Yeah.
And to your point, like the customers, it's so important to show up. Like you're producing the content. You are getting in front of these people. To your point, they are seeing what you're posting and they're kind of stalking you. But that it's not like you're going to lose a customer because you didn't respond to every single comment. Obviously for our retailers, if somebody's commenting like, what size, or is this still left? Like we're going to comment back to that.
You want to be attentive, and especially for the people who are your fans. I mean, you need to love on them in a special way. But, I want to sort of break the cycle of saying that engagement is the most important thing. And that's sort of become this trend, especially on Instagram. And I just don't think it's healthy for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And it really has become the trend, actually. It was so long how many followers you have. And then it's like, well, are they really engaging with you? And at the end of the day, like, how are we really measuring the success I feel like we could do a whole podcast episode about that. So important. Thank you for that answer. I have huge news. The Independent Retailers Association is live. We are so excited to announce that this online community is here to support independent retailers. We believe that it is the independent era. This is your time to shine. You have so many advantages to stand out, to grow customer experience, to get found online, to be a modern retailer that is relevant to today's consumer. And we want to help aid you in all of that, which you'll find on the Independent Retailers Association. Now, we call it INDERA, short for Independent Era. This is your era, and we're here to just amplify that with you and with all the other independent retailers who are inside of our community. So if you want to join us, membership starts as low as just $25 a month to join the community, get access to education, resources done for you, AI training, and more. To learn more and to join, head to joinindera.com. That's join, INDERA.com to see the different membership levels and learn about what we are up to. I would love to see you inside of our community, and I would love to support you. So head on over to joinindera.com and let's get back to the episode. Now, Mark, in the book, another statement that you wrote that I loved was, knowledge is power, but imagination is nuclear. I couldn't agree more. I feel like we don't tap into our imagination enough. And our retailers are doing the same old promos, like the predictable discounts. And like you said, it's President's Day. Let's do a sale, like we're just doing the same thing. So what does it take to break that cycle and create marketing that really actually grabs the attention?
I think that is a real strength of the book, because I break this down into a framework that's really 3 buckets or 3, ideas, and they're easy to understand and it's accessible. And there's hundreds and hundreds of examples and ideas in the book for each of these, for, big businesses and small businesses. I tried to make a lot of very diverse examples. And it kind of goes like this: to rise above competent, to rise above boring, we've got to be disruptive in some way. And I had this amazing opportunity, Crystal, to go out and talk to some of the most acclaimed creative minds in the world. I was so energized writing this book. When I was finished with the book, I was actually sad because this was such a learning experience for me. And here's what I found. The people that are doing the greatest marketing above the meh, they're looking, okay, what's the story that we tell? And if your story is, oh, it's a President's Day sale, well, then that's just boring. That's what you've always done. So it's disrupt the story. You can disrupt where the story is told, or you can disrupt who is telling the story. So, we can talk about each of these really briefly. I don't want to spend too much time on this because there's lots of examples in the book. But so disrupting the story. A great example in the book, is one of my favorite case studies, is Liquid Death. I think most of your fans and customers are in the US. I don't think Liquid Death has really gone outside the US too much. but this is the fastest growing beverage in America. And the number one rule I learned in marketing school was never associate your product with death. And
Exactly.
so, I mean, they started by doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
Their mascot is called Murder Man. Their advertisements they really just give you a lot of anxiety. But they're tapping into something. They're breaking norms. They're breaking taboos. Water is supposed to be, wholesome in clear bottles. You're supposed to have a name like Rainbow Springs. And what they're saying is, why can't we have some fun? Why can't we be a little, ridiculous? And it's literally propelling the brand. And they're not being reckless. They're not being offensive. They're not breaking the law, but they're breaking a taboo. They're breaking an old rule that you've got to have water in a plastic bottle and say, we'd rather do this in recyclable aluminum cans in this cool can that almost looks like you're drinking beer. It's a lot cooler, right? They're actually selling the water in bars, which always gave water away. Their biggest market is bars because it looks cool to hold one of these cans.
Yep.
So that's an example of telling the story in a new way. Now, what about breaking the rule about where you tell the story? Can you show up in an unexpected place? And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Elf, where Elf is like leaning into the signals. So Elf is a cosmetic company that appeals mostly to young women, although they sell to everybody. So they say, look, if our customers are into sports, we're going to show up in sports. They sponsor an Indy race car. They have a fashion area on Roblox.
Crazy.
All right. So who would have ever thought of a cosmetic company being on Roblox? But they said our customers are on Roblox. They said our customers are into music. They created a music studio. They created the number one viral video on TikTok last year. The number one video ever on TikTok by far. It was created by a cosmetic company. Now think about the traditional cosmetics, L'Oreal and, these different, Sephora. Would they be on Roblox? No. So they're telling their story in a different place. They're leaning into the signals and showing up in unexpected places that create delight for the customers. The last one, and again, I'm just like hitting the high level here of these things. The third one is disrupting who tells the story. And the fact of the matter is, nobody really believes advertising anymore. And this shows up in the research. There's research, probably many have heard of, called the Edelman Trust Barometer, that shows that advertising, traditional advertising, has lost its trust 15 years in a row. But people trust each other. People will trust a review, a testimony, a word from a stranger before they'll trust your advertising. So the idea in this section is to create something so interesting for your business, something so unmissable that people can't wait to talk about it. So it's like, instead of you holding the microphone, you write the script and give it to your customers and let them tell the story. And kind of a cool example of this is the cover of my book. So the cover of my book is a QR code. And when you hover over the QR code, it unleashes this abstract art from the stories in the book. So the cover keeps changing. It's a book that's never the same way twice.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening, Crystal? This is blowing their minds. They're taking videos of this and they're posting it all over the internet. So my book cover is telling the story.
Yep.
Right? And so I've given them a reason to talk about the book because the cover is so cool. I've created something that's interesting and unique and worthy and unmissable, and that's helping people spread the word about the book because the cover is the first anybody's ever done something like that. So that would be an example of helping customers tell the story, which is the best type of marketing of all.
It absolutely is. Thank you for running through that. And again, people got to get the book because you have so many examples in there that really help you brainstorm and see this come to life. With Liquid Death, I just want to say I'll never forget seeing that for the first time. It was so impactful. I was at the airport and I'm like, oh, this place sells beer. It was like this health place, and I'm like, I could just take this beer. It was just sort of weird to me. So that I'm holding it and I'm like, is this beer? Like, it just really intercepted my attention, right? Like versus interruption all the time. And it stood out. So I'll never forget. It's such a good example.
It's one of their commercials. They have all these young children and they're having a good time. And it looks like they're drinking Liquid Death and it looks like they're partying.
Yes.
And then at the end of the ad, the mother just stands back with this little smile on her face. And the tagline is, don't worry, it's just water.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, they're nailing it. They are. The video you link to of the Liquid Death, I rather drink sweat or something like that. And so a fat man's sweat. And they actually people need to watch that video. It was so good. They're nailing it. But excellent examples. And I just feel like there's so much opportunity in what you just said for our retailers. This is what breaks the cycle. That's the hardest part and you say this in the book, you quote something around what I always say is we don't need to do what we've always done, right? And that's what a lot of us are doing. We just always do it because that's what we've always done. We have to break the cycle. Okay, Mark, before we go into the resilience round, I have a fun question for you. I wanted to know, because you have written 11 books. You've spoken on probably thousands of stages at this point. You have marketed and taught marketing to the masses. But if you had to delete your career, you're starting all over as an independent retailer. You're one of our listeners and you are literally selling anything. What would your store be and how would you market the heck out of it? How would you be audacious?
The first thing I do is I'd come to Colorado. I say, Crystal, help me.
Yes.
I really appreciated you sending me this question ahead of time because, you ask really good questions. And this was a hard one. What I thought about is it really wouldn't be as important about what I was selling versus how I was selling it.
Okay.
So here's an example. So let's go back to Liquid Death. Liquid Death saw this opportunity where the whole water market, they've institutionalized dull. It's been packaged and marketed and sold the same way for decades. And so did the guy who started Liquid Death, was his dream to start a water brand? No, it was to disrupt the market that was dull. So, it doesn't really matter what the product is. If you find a new way to position it, and especially with retail, I think that, just kind of connecting some of the dots here, I think the opportunity to create retail so that it's an experience that brings people together in some way. So it's not just an individual lonely person visiting a store. What if they came into your store and they didn't feel lonely? What would it mean to belong there? I don't know. That's part of the fun, right? That's part of the imagination because what is a brand? A brand is creating an emotional expectation. The emotional expectation might be the clothes are cheap here. The emotional expectation might be the clothes are pretty here. The emotional expectation might be, they've got clean restrooms and I need a duck in here. But what if the emotional expectation was, I belong here? Mm-hmm. That's new and that's needed and that's relevant in this time of our world when people are so lonely and so isolated. So I would think about creating a retail brand in some category where boring has been institutionalized. Yeah. And I would think about how do I use my space that people say, I'm going to go there every week just because I want to be there. Mm-hmm. There's something going on there and I want to belong there. They've got something new to see every week, but there's something going on there that makes me feel like I belong. That's where I would start.
Amazing lens to look through. I think of two stores that are super boring that could use your help and use that lens, which is Men's Warehouse.
Oh,
Oh man,
oh
we
my
were
God.
there. We got married
Oh,
last
that's
year.
a
So
perfect
isn't
example.
that so good? I mean,
I have so much anxiety shopping for men's clothes.
yes.
I literally get anxiety shopping for men's clothes.
Yep. And so with Men's Warehouse, I don't know, they're just like way old school. I just think there's an opportunity to belong to that brand
Yeah.
and make it super cool for men and not have the anxiety.
Well, think about this. I mean, here's a sort of a congruent sort of idea or brand. I've had the same person cut my hair for probably 20 years because the hardest question for any man to answer is, how do you want your hair cut? I don't want to answer that. I just want to have her do it. But she wasn't available. So I went to a sports clip. A sports clip is like, you're surrounded by sports, and it's like, okay, this is kind of cool. I could see why a guy would kind of like coming here. And so there's nothing like that in the men's shopping experience. It's like, I'm afraid. I just want to get this over with.
Right. In and out, like, yeah.
I don't
exactly.
know what I'm doing.
Yes, exactly. That's why my husband brought me to help him with the suit. But opportunity there. Also, my friend once said this many years ago, Michaels. I feel like Michaels could really use, some help.
Yeah.
That was a tough one. And I want to share with you because I think you'll really appreciate this. And then we're going to go into the resilience round. One of our favorite retailers, probably our number one fan, Michelle Smith, who owns 3 toy stores called Piccolo Mundo Toys. She's done a seniors meetup for the grandparents because
I love that. If I
great?
knew that, I would have put it in the book. I love that.
I know, for your next book, because I just thought that was so amazing. She was saying, they have lonely seniors and they're shopping for kids and for their grandkids. And so she does these meetups so they can connect with each other and make friends, which is just so good.
That's a perfect example.
It's a perfect example. All right, Mark, are you ready for the resilience round?
I don't like the resilience.
I know.
I'm not good at thinking on my feet. So go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Best business book.
This is probably the same one I said last time I was on your show. I really like a book called Entrepreneurship and Innovation by Peter Drucker. I think it was written in 1984, but I mean, it provides a framework for innovation for any business. It's just a super important book. Yep,
that is the same one. Love it. Best retail technology, like an app or software?
I don't have one. I mean, I'm just not a shopper. I am not a shopper. I really get anxiety shopping. I avoid it at all costs. But it goes back to your statement. When it comes to someone like me, there's a huge opportunity to make me feel like, to lower the anxiety and say, you belong here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. You don't have to have one. That is a perfect answer. How do you keep up with the ever changing? Now, normally I ask retail landscape. You could also answer this with marketing landscape. Up to you, because I know you're not specifically in retail.
Well, there are a few newsletters and journals that I like. They're very, very broad, sort of like futuristic kind of writers. And so there's a guy in London that I like, called Azim Azar. And I've known Azim for a long time. And he talks about the environment, and he talks about AI, technology, and, self-driving cars and all the things that could impact us eventually. So he sort of gets my head in a space of, I have an idea of what might be coming next. And so there's a few newsletters like that. If you want to keep up with AI, Paul Reitzer's Artificial Intelligence podcast. He does an hour every week. It's truly excellent. So I tend to find 3 or 4 things that I read every week that gives me some depth into what I'm interested in.
Very cool. I'm interested in those things. I'm going to check those out. Those sound awesome. If you had to start your business all over again, what's one thing you do differently?
I'd have more emphasis on my personal brand. When I started my business, I resisted having a personal brand. I didn't want to be the center of attention. I'm sort of an introvert. And I started my business in 2008. Crystal, I did not have my photo on my website till 2016.
Wow.
I basically just gave up and said, the people want me.
Yes.
The people want me. I mean, I am the face of the company and the brand. But that was really dumb because today that's where people build their bond. They build their emotional connection to the people behind the business. And especially in a world of AI, where AI seemingly can do almost anything, the one thing it can't take away from us is our personal brand. In every space, in every industry, we're still going to look for a human who we know and trust and love to tell us the truth and set us in the right direction, because we're going to be overwhelmed with misinformation and deep fakes, and we want a real person to trust. Mm-hmm. So I wish I would have, I kind of resisted the whole idea of personal brand, but that is what's truly the source of my success today, is being a thought leader in my industry. And that's what's helped me stand out.
Yeah, for sure. Finally, what do you think the future of independent retail looks like?
I know a lot of people listening today are probably really focused on personalization. I mean, even I get a lot of promises from technology about personalization. And what I see is that the personalization has become impersonal. When I see an email that they just slap my name at the top of the email, that's a signal that I'm not going to read it. But if it's from someone I know, I always open it. That's the difference between personal and personalization. And the world of AI can be very, very confusing. But, I think what we need to think about is what makes our business great. Is it innovation? Is it service? Is it because we're friendly and personal? Then how do we focus on AI to help us be even greater that way, to be even more fun, more personal, more, innovative, more fashion forward or whatever. So focus that in that way. But most of all, don't buy the crap being sold out there about personalization, and don't confuse it with being personal. Just slapping someone's name on it does not make it personal. So really focus on personal. That's what people are going to need and embrace even more when we're overwhelmed in this AI world.
Well said. Dang, Mark. Well said. I couldn't agree more.
Great.
How can people connect with you and learn more?
Very simple. You don't even have to remember my name. You go to Businesses Grow. If you can remember Businesses Grow, that's my website. The book that we talked about today is called Audacious: How Humans Fit in an AI Marketing World. We also mentioned Marketing Rebellion is another book that Crystal liked. And you can find my blog, you can find my podcast, all my social media connections. And yeah, I'd love to hear from everyone who's listening.
Amazing. We'll link to everything too. Mark, thank you for coming back. This was such a good conversation. I really appreciate it. And thanks for helping us all. We need it.
Well, you're welcome. And it was a great conversation because you were so well prepared. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Everyone, remember that I'm rooting for your success. Have a great week ahead. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Rooted in Retail podcast. It means the world to me to have you here. If you find value in this show and you listen on an iPhone, if you could leave a review on the Apple Podcast app, that would be amazing. And if you watch YouTube, if you're a YouTube subscriber, we film this. And so if you rather watch the show, you can also do that over on YouTube. Again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.